Alright, so I'm now convinced I cannot make recordings longer than 1 hour, because that messed up again. So we're going to be doing these in 30-minute segments from now on. Whew, yeah, which, of course means that I just wasted an hour. But, whatever. We'll redo this, and we'll do it in 30-minute sections. And, what was the last thing we were doing? Oh yeah, we came into the house, and there was the crazy picture, and we're like, that seems oddly suspicious. The door was opened, and we were invited inside. Yeah, make that go a little faster. The dining room, everything in the room looking clearly expensive, was set up with a super long table, which is obviously positioned with no other purpose than to make the guests conscientious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance to that ordering. The old man pressed us to sit. Only the places where we would sit were empty at the long table, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, called the incipient's chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He was probably planning to come in last to ham it up. The seating order, looking at the incipient's chair at the head of the table, went from left to right, with the lower ranking seats progressing in rows 2 further away from it. So, on the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the incipient's chair, was where Cross Oji-san ranked at number 2 should have sat. It looked like Oji-san hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. And then, to his opposite, on the right side of the first row sat the eldest daughter of the family, Aunt Eva, ranked at number 3. The left-hand side of the second row was for number 4. There sat my old man, Rudolph, as one of the 3 siblings already present. Opposite of him sat number 5, the youngest sibling, Aunt Rosa. Going like this, you might think that the next ones to come would be their husbands and wives, but it's weird, but the next left-hand seat in the third row, meaning number 6, was Jessica's seat. Opposite her was George Anarchy. Then, next to Jessica was me. And opposite of me was Maria. Then, finally, next to me on the left-hand side of the 5th row was number 10, Aunt Natsui. Opposite of her was Hideyoshi Oji-san. Next to Aunt Natsui, in the 6th row and in the final seat on the left-hand side, was Kirie-san. The seat opposite to Kirie-san was empty, even though everything had been set out. According to this ranking system, that spot was the seat where Aunt Rose's husband should be sitting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Now, maybe it's just me that bothers me a bit, the whole, family seating ranking system. I don't know, it just does. These kind of ranking orders usually recognize the status of the spouse, but the Ushiroi family had an original kind of ranking. Maybe it's a leftover of male chauvinism. If the system is predicated on the idea that a woman's womb is just a borrowed thing, then the children of a direct descendant would have a much higher ranking, and the grandchildren would come next. Meaning that the spouses, with no blood ties, are considered the last in line. It's terrible, but according to that ranking order, grandmother, when she was still alive, would have been in a position even lower than mine. In their youth, they obey their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. There's the old saying, women, whether in their past, present, or future, have no home. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that all of us could chat, with the adult siblings in their group, and us cousins in ours. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. Aunt Natsui, married to the eldest son of the family and number 2 in managing the house, sat to my right. which meant that she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. It was difficult to guess what was going on inside Auntie's head. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture before sitting down.
お久しぶりですね、バトラ君。ずいぶん背が伸びましたね。
ああ、はい。食ったり食べたり食事したりしてたら、いつの間にかこんな身長に。
There's a saying that if there's a nice person, but they're mean to a waiter, that they're not actually a nice person. I'd like to bring that up right about now.
さすが男の子ね。身長はいくつくらいあるの？
180かな。つうかおばさん、そこは食べてばっかりじゃねえかって突っ込んでくださいよ。
え？ああ。ごめんなさいね。
Auntie, after a moment, gave a small laugh, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. This woman is Natsui Obasan. Which, if we pull this up... Ushiramiya Natsui, Cross's wife. She manages the household of the Ushiramiya head family in place of her husband, who takes little interest in such matters. She was in charge of all preparations and arrangements for this family conference. She possesses a strong sense of responsibility and a great deal of pride. However, neither her husband nor his siblings understand her very well, so her position is far from enviable. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning she is my father's older brother's wife. My father's older brother's... What? Yes, yeah, okay, I understand. Is it easier if I just call her Jessica's mother? It feels bad to say it like this, but not that I hated her, I didn't particularly like her. Don't worry, I understand. She never got into our kids' circle, and she always looked difficult to get along with. And it didn't help that she gave the impression that she was at odds with the other parents. The fact is that having barely ever exchanged words, I hesitated a lot about how to approach her. And I ended up empty-handed. The silverware had been tidily set up on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in. In essence, until the man at the head of the table had taken his seat, the meal wouldn't start. So as long as grandfather, the highest rank, didn't come, lunch would be indefinitely on hold. Not even the appetizers would come. So while our parents withstood their hunger, the silence of the dining room would still wait for grandfather to come. It's just that the grandfather I remembered, when we ate together like this, always showed up at the right time. He was supposed to be the kind of person that would never be so late that he'd keep everyone waiting, even though they were all present.
遅えな、じいさま。俺の記憶じゃ、時間に厳格な人だったと思うんだけどな。
まあ、6年前はそうだったかもな。最近はそうでもねえよ。というか、もう自分の世界オンリーって感じで、会食にも顔を出さねえぜ。さすがに今日くらいは足並みを揃えてくれるって思ってたんだけどな。まあ、私は来ない方が気楽で嬉しいけどよ。
Jessica!
After being scolded by her mother, Jessica faced the other way, sticking her tongue out. No way around it. Nothing to do but wait for the host to arrive. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. Oh boy. The old master of the Ushiramiya head house, Ushiramiya Kinzo. And let's take a look at Ushiramiya Kinzo, the aged head of the Ushiramiya family. Even though it has already been announced that he has just a few months left to live, he is brimming with energy. Though he amassed a vast fortune in the past, he never made any announcements about his inheritance, which worries his children. He is strongly influenced by the West and is a rabid fan of the occult. His study is packed with mysterious grimoires. His shape in his study. Now I don't understand that. What does that mean? His shape in his study? I don't get that. The clock showed noon, but he didn't even attempt to get up. Putting his spectacles on, he piled up one by one beside him old-fashioned books with elaborately designed bindings, and immersed himself in their reading. It definitely didn't look like it was for his leisure, On the contrary, he exuded impatience, crisis, as though every minute, every second were precious. The inside of the sealed room, where dense dust danced, stagnated, seeped in the suspicious stench of smelly medicine. Somehow, sweet, heavy. For anyone with a good nose, the first thing they'd do after entering would be to open a window and ventilate the room. The knocking against the study door had been going on for a while. A voice calling, "Father," sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped the old book he had in his hand shut and slammed it on the table. Then, he yelled at Cross, who was still knocking on the door.
やかましいその音を止めぬか愚か者叩けば扉は開かれると誰が教えたそのバカ者は貼り付けにしたぞお前もそうされたいのか
I bet the whole family loves these family conferences.
お父さん、年に一度の親族会議の日ではありませんか。皆下に集まっています。どうかおいでください。
Cross called out to his father through the door. Kinzo always shut himself up in the study, and hated it when even his family entered the room. For that reason, Cross had no choice but to call out thus from the corridor.
私にかがうでない
Oh, we weren't going to do that.
皆とは何か私をここから引きずり出そうとする者どもなのかならば殺してしまいバラバラにして薪にして魔女の炉にくべてしまいその炉には鍋をかけて苦い重みを煮るがいい
I think Grandpa's gone a little odd, I'd have to say.
黙示録の煮汁はそれでも私をここから連れ出そうとするバカ者どもに飲ませてやれ残りは酒につけるのだああ源氏はどこだ源氏を呼べ苦害の魔紙を用意させろ緑の妖精のささやきが届かぬああ源氏はどこだ源氏を呼べ
Before the door, Cross, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who would not come out.
すっかり嫌われてしまったようだ。もう私の声では何も届かんよ。
Cross shrugged as though saying, "It's no use," and smiled bitterly. He himself hadn't really believed his father would answer his calls. However, as it was the duty of the eldest son, he had formally made the request.
金蔵さんあんたの顔を見に息子や娘や孫たちが来てるんじゃないかうるさい黙れ私に意見するというか何じゃ貴様など呼んではおらぬ私は源氏を呼べと言ったのだ時間は常に有限だ人たちはすでにラッパを構えているぞなぜにそれがわからぬか愚かな羊どもめ
Kinzo slammed the old heavy book on the table over and over. The racket obviously indicated his highest displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open, as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled,
なぜだなぜにいつも私には邪魔が入るのか
You know it's serious when your background disappears.
すべてを捨てよすべてを捧げよその見返りに私は一つしか求めないというのにああベアトリーチェお前の微笑みをもう一度見られるならば私は世界中から美少を奪い取りすべてをお前に捧げようおおイナゴの軍団長たちよ世界中から美少を刈り取り収穫せ
This coughing sound. It's just the way he does it. It's so dramatic, it doesn't sound quite real.
源氏を呼べ。
何を怒鳴ってるのかもさっぱりだな。もう頭がどうにかなっているのだ。
I think we can agree on something here, Cross. Okay, so I took a quick break just to make sure everything's working. It is. I think if I record in 30-minute segments, I think it'll be just fine. I adjusted some settings and I don't think I can make hour recordings anymore, not in one go. Also, I am a little bit hungry because I was planning on eating right about now, once I finish my recording. But I do remember this section is very little talking, so I'm going to be muting my mic for most of this while going through it, just so everyone knows.
クラウスさん、実のお父さんにそりゃあんまりじゃないかね。
親父はすでに死んでいる。ここにいるのは親父だったものの幻さ。いずれにせよ本人にここを出る意志がない以上どうにもならんね。
金蔵さん。
Choking coughs continue to pour from the study.
私は下に
Right after I say that, I'm like, got my mouth full of food, great.
ゴーダの自慢のランチをこれ以上無駄に冷ましてしまうことはない。親類たちにとって当家での数少ない楽しみだろうからな。
Cross spun on his heels. He looked at his wristwatch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain.
源氏さん、親父殿がお呼びだ。相手を頼む。
かしこまりました。
南條先生、食事に行きましょう。いつまでもここにいると、この甘い匂いで味覚までおかしくなってしまう。
Without waiting for Nanjo, Cross went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo looked first to Cross's back as he disappeared down the stairs, then to the study door, and he let out a deep sigh.
すまんが源氏さん、頼みます。
はい、お任せください。
お酒はなるべく与えないように。あれは常習性が強すぎる。源氏はまだか。何者が源氏を阻んでいるというのか。うわ、源氏はどこだ。源氏を呼べ。
さあ、ここはお任せください。
すみませんな。
Nanjo gave a small duck of his head and descended the stairs. Genji saw him off and knocked at the study door.
親方様、源氏でございます。
源氏か。何故私をこれほどに待たすのか。そこには誰もおるまいな。
はい、私だけでございます。
Kinzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old style switch on the table. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Kinzo believed that his family might try to break into his study. Why would they want to break in your study? Perhaps someone once opened the window for some air and scattered important documents and other stuff. Is that what made him so nasty? Now, Kinzo had placed a secure lock in his own room, making it so that without his permission, nobody could enter, and locking himself in the dungeon he'd created. Genji, who he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but that was also not absolute. If Kinzo was in a bad mood, even he wouldn't be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, not even seeing his face. And most of the time, they wouldn't even get a real conversation. However, that didn't become a big problem for the family. Because going to the trouble of speaking to the aged head, who was impossible to please, completely immersed in his odd research, and always locked up in his hideaway, just wasn't worth the effort. They were happy that he didn't come out of his study, Putting him in the hands of the servants, they themselves also try to avoid him.
元気いつものやつを頼む。私は忙しい。
はい。
Genji headed to a corner of the study. There, a suspicious-looking bottle boasting of venomous color was displayed. It was actually liquor. Literally, the last thing that he was told was, please don't give him liquor. What does he do? Get some liquor. First thing. Good job, Genji. But considering that it was placed in the suspicious-looking room, one begins to doubt whether it isn't actually some sort of ghastly poison. Inside of the study, the mysterious collection of books that Kinzo had gathered had grown into a mountain. They were bizarre, ancient, or banned books, all of them either forbidden, cursed, or sealed. But then, if one were to call them old books, Kinzo would fly into a rage and say something like this. Call them grimoires! That's my best Kinzo voice, and it peeked out the mics, that was great. There were many mysterious objects, like a candle suspiciously melted and molded into a strange shape, which probably had something to do with black magic. The constellations drawn in a certain celestial globe contained quite a few dots that a person who knows the night sky well would tilt their head at. The illustrations inscribed in an old, casually opened book were all full of religious, or possibly demonic, grotesque arcana, as well as the weird shapes of various magical circles. And above all, the sweet poisonous smell that filled the room profoundly assaulted those who entered for the first time in their sense of sight and smell, then on all their senses, making them lose their grip on reality. Inside that study, Genji, with his well-trained hand, prepared Kinzo's usual drink. If you didn't know that the ominous dark green liquor that filled the complexly designed bottle was liquor, you really wouldn't want to put it in your mouth. He poured a small quantity of the spirits into the glass. After placing a cube of sugar in a strangely shaped spoon, he then poured water from a pitcher over it. Strangely, when the transparent water was poured, the dark green liquid turned a cloudy white. It was a strange optical illusion, as though the water had caused a chemical reaction and made the drink become even more unrecognizable as liquor. It improved the original flavor Kinzo liked and adjusted the taste. There was no recipe. Its success was measured only by Kinzo's mood swing when he drank it, and he had learned how to make it only after many decades. Genji placed the glass in the tray and faced Kinzo. Kinzo was now gazing out the window.
どうぞ、親方様。
ああ、すまん。
Kinzo, now unrecognizable as the man who was shouting, screaming, and yelling just before, regained his composure. In that man's back dwelt a dignity and intelligence, plain simply by how he tilted his glass and gazed down at the scenery beyond the window. I thought I remembered this as being a very, character talking session, not so much me talking session. Genji, in order to allow Kinzo to set down his glass any time, motionlessly waited behind Kinzo, and to his left, as though he were a living sideboard. Thereupon, while Kinzo looked out the window, he stuck out only the glass. There was just a mouthful remaining. It was not a gesture intended to set it upon the tray, as Genji expected, but it was a motion to hand the glass over to Genji.
飲め、我が友よ。
もったいないお言葉です。
私とお前の中に儀礼はいらぬ。飲め、友よ。
いただきます。
Genji respectfully received the glass and inclined it a little to taste its contents. After that, he agitated it.
お前が作るのを真似ているのだがどうにも同じ味が出ぬ。お前が作る方がうまい。
ありがとうございます。親方様のご指導の賜物です。
Kinzo smiled at his loyal subject, who refused to put aside rank even when asked to. However, he was not making fun of him. It was relaxed, like a smile at a close friend's unriddable bad habit.
互いに老いたな。年を数えることも忘れてすでに久しい。
今日まで過ごすことをお許しいただけたのも、すべて親方様のおかげでございます。
Kinzo gave a thin smile, as if to say he didn't need compliments.
今日まで本当によく私に仕えてくれた。息子たちは誰もが私を変人呼ばわりした。大勢いた使用人も皆私を恐れてやめていった。お前だけが今でも私に仕えてくれる。
もったいないお言葉です。
私の余命もそう長くはあるまい。息子たちは私の遺産がいつ転がり込んでくるかをうろうろ待つハゲタカばかりだ。クラウスの愚か者は金を湯水のように使い、1枚の金貨を売るのに2枚の金貨を捨てておる。それで金を稼げたなどと妄言を。エヴァは金の亡者だ。あやつは私を鶏か何かだと思っておる。死んだらガラにして出汁まで取る気だ。ルドルフの間抜けは女遊びばかり。ローザはどこの馬の骨ともわからん男の赤ん坊など産みおって、ジェシカは無能で無学だ。ジョージには男としての器がない。バトラーは後ろ宮家の栄養を自ら捨ておった。
Hey, don't be saying bad things about Battler. He's pretty cool.
マリアなど見るのも汚らわしい。
And what's that? Are you saying Maria's ugly? Wow, what a jerk. And the grandpa's crazy too. Don't forget to add that to the big line. You're all one big happy weird family.
私の築き上げた栄光を受け継ぐにふさわしい者はおらんのか。ああ、分かっておるとも。これがベアトリーチェの呪いであることも分かっておる。黄金の魔女め、それが私への復讐のつもりか。憎みたくば憎むがよい。逃げたければ逃げるがよい。逃がさぬ、逃がさぬ、逃がさぬ、逃がさぬわ。お前は私のものだ。常に私の腕の中でなくてはならん。私の生涯のすべてなのだ。我が鳥かごにて永遠に私だけにささやき続けるのだ。ベアトリーチェ。
Oh my gosh. He's so dramatic. Like, there's a point where it stops being dramatic and it starts becoming kind of silly. And I think he's tripped that and he's just like kept going down the slide of being silly. After howling, Kinzo choked once again. Genji set the tray and glass down and patted his master's back. Genji's facial expression did not change. It was always like this. The outburst, like his previous agitation, had calmed, and Kinzo regained his composure again. His change of stance was like seeing two different people, a wild Kinzo and a composed Kinzo, living together inside of one body.
私は決心した。このままぼやききった余生を怠慢に過ごすことなどもはや耐えられはせん。この身に最後にとするコインがあるならば、それを悪魔たちのルーレットに託してみたい。魔法の力はいつもかけるリスクで決まる。 日本古来の呪術である牛の国参りがそうであろう。7日間儀式を目撃されてはならないというリスクを支払うからこそ魔力が宿る。困難なリスクが生じれば生じるほどに魔力は強く生じるのだ。神話に登場する数々の奇跡は天文学的リスクに奇跡的な低確率を得て成就した驚愕すべき魔力の結晶なのだと言える。モーゼが海を割ったのは神の奇跡ではない。蹂躙の計りに乗せられ軍勢によって航海に追い詰められた絶体絶命のリスクが奇跡の魔力を生んだのだ。同じことが同じ規模で繰り返されようとも再び海が割れることはないだろう。なぜならモーゼは力ある者たちのルーレットのアソーギナユタをかけたよりも多く存在する目の中に一つだけ刻まれた奇跡を見事引き寄せることができたからだ。その天文学的確率に勝利できる力、そう奇跡をつかみ取る運気はすなわち魔力なのだ。強大な魔力を得るためには絶望的なリスクを背負わねばならぬ。魔力持たぬ者はそれを賭けでなく自暴自棄と呼ぼう。しかし真に魔力ある者はその奇跡をつかみ取り神秘を成就させるのだ。もしも私にその魔力があるならば私はその奇跡をつかみ取るだろう。生涯を費やした願いを実現できるだろう。
Kinzo looked up to the sky outside the window. He spread his arms as if appealing to someone up in the skies.
もし私にその奇跡を手にする資格があったなら、おー、ベアトリーチェ、ベアトリーチェ、お前の愛くるしい笑顔をもう一度だけ見せてくれ。どれほどの月日を経ようともお前の面影が消えることはない。ただお前の美少が見たい、それだけだ。お前から授かったものを全て返そう。あの日からの栄光を全てお前に返そう。富も名誉も黄金もいらぬ。お前に授かった全てを返そう。私はただお前の美少が見たいだけなのだ。五章だ、ベアトリーチェ。
His nonsensical yell segued into a scream, and then into a wail. Kinzo folded over onto the bed, and tore it with both his hands. Genji had no choice, but to wordlessly watch over his master's lament. And, yeah. Grandpa's kinda crazy. Does anyone want to order pizza? It might be a while till we eat. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop it here for today. Sorry, only due to the fact that I'm a little bit annoyed by the whole thing, but now I know for sure, like, I've nailed it down that I cannot do more than 30 minutes at a time, really. Then, I should be okay for the rest of these. I'm gonna take a little break now, and when I get off of work this evening, I will try to do another one. But for right now, I'm gonna take a break on it. So, thank you guys for watching, and, be back later this evening / early morning, something like that, on my time, obviously. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye!